So I just finished the final episode of the series and I'm like,
any of you fellas got something to drink?
yeah, I'm gonna need a drink after this because I was not expecting this ending. There is a lot to unpack here, like who this woman was watching over Sabrina's death, where Sabrina actually is, and Nick too, and about a half dozen hints at what we can expect for a season 5. Yes, the show has been cancelled on Netflix, but there are clues that it may be coming back. So make sure to like and subscribe because hell is waiting. The final episode is called At the Mountains of Madness, which is both the place Sabrina and Faustus work on extracting the void, as well as the name of a famous H.P. Lovecraft novella. Guillermo del Toro has tried to adapt it into a movie for decades, but that's besides the point. Lovecraft is a huge influence on this season, as the main horrors which plague Sabrina and Greendale are the Eldritch Terrors, whom were heavily inspired by Lovecraft's stories. In chapter 29, Agatha even refers to Faustus Blackwood as being Reverend Lovecraft as he starts his new church, the Pilgrims of the Night.
We would love it if you came to visit us soon.
No, thank you.
Part 3 saw Blackwood pledging to be the Eldritch Terror's servant, and here we are picking up right where we left off. Mary Wardwell has taken on a new role leading the Pilgrims of the Night after the absence of Reverend Lovecraft, who she says is currently on a holy mission. She has his book of writings which are called the Eldritch Gospels. We see him writing these all the way back in chapter 29. The attention to detail here is also great, as the church has grown considerably since Wardwell was first introduced to it 8 episodes ago. The interesting thing here is Wardwell is reciting events Faustus Blackwood wrote down 2 days before Halloween, and 50 minutes later, near the end of the episode, she says this:
Ad Moriam, Faustus, Gloriam.
Which translates from Latin to happy to die for glory. This seems to suggest two things. One, that Faustus is dead, but we'll get to what happens to him later, and two, that the events depicted in the final episode were written by Blackwood himself, so keep that in mind. Nick ends up giving Sabrina a memento of his love, dual lockets each containing a photo of themselves. Not only is this a symbol of his love to her, but it also plays an important plot point later on in the episode, and as they passionately kiss in Sabrina's room, Nick is cockblocked by Sabrina Morningstar, who has returned from the alternate cosmos to warn them that the final Eldritch Terror, the Void, is on its way.
It won't stop until everything's destroyed.
The Eldritch Terrors have been the main focus of this season, and there are 8 of them. The darkness, the uninvited, the weird, the perverse, the cosmic, the returned, the endless, and the void. By the final episode, Sabrina and the gang have pretty much either contained or stopped all of these terrors except for the most menacing of all, the void, which seeks to destroy all worlds including heaven, hell, and mortal. Meanwhile, Faustus, who was beheaded and forced to look at his own rotting body in the dungeon of the Academy, senses that it's time. You may be wondering how he's not dead. That's because in part 3, he was given the Mark of Cain, which granted him immortality. That's also why Prudence, knowing this, ends up cutting his body and spreading the parts around the globe. So this leaves plenty of opportunity for Wardwell and the Pilgrims of the Night to search out for his parts and bring him back together again. Now this finale does this a lot, purposely leaving out a lot of story threads in case the show were to be picked up for another season on another platform, and I'll try to point these out as I go along. You'll notice Faustus calls upon his body to come toward him, and some of you may be like, why didn't he do this earlier? That's because he was waiting for this specific moment, when the void would be on its way. There's no one that knows more about the void than him, so this was all part of his plan. Sabrina needs help trying to destroy the void, and guess who magically shows up?
Good evening to you, friend.
Yes, Trinket Man.
I'm the Trinket Man.
This was one of the aspects of the show which I didn't particularly like. This guy seems to show up anytime one of the characters has a problem with an object that will save everything. Kind of like in chapter 32, where he gives Ambrose the Stone of Omphalos, which allows him to save Greendale from Emperor Blackwood. This time he has something even more powerful, Pandora's Box. In Greek mythology, Pandora's Box was a jar opened by the first human woman, Pandora, and when she opened it, things didn't turn out well. It contained sicknesses, death, and many other evils that would be unleashed upon the world. So Sabrina is going going to use this in the hopes of trapping the void within. The only problem is she has to be inside the void to do it, meaning she won't make it back out. She knows her future is death, hence why she writes a goodbye note to her family. But what Sabrina doesn't foresee is that while she's opening the box and putting an end to the void, her family is performing a spell that will bring her back. The only problem is they don't have her body, so they use Sabrina Morningstar's, who died from crashing through the mirror, and put Sabrina Spellman's soul into it. So basically we have half mortal, half witch Sabrina Spellman's soul put into the body of Sabrina Morningstar, the Queen of Hell. Of course this pisses off Lucifer, who learns from Lilith that his daughter has died and her body is being desecrated by Sabrina Spellman's soul. Lilith will tell Lucifer where Sabrina's location is if he promises to give her powers back. Remember back in chapter 33 that Lucifer stripped Lilith of all her powers after she refused to tell him where their son Adam was, and you don't want to know where he went.
He is dead!
Caliban and Beelzebub head into the mines to gather an army, taking control of Harvey's dad and the miners. Their attack on the Spellmans don't go over as planned, as Sabrina starts sucking in her attackers faster than my Dyson I got for Christmas. This freaks Lucifer and he pieces out, telling Lilith that Sabrina has godlike powers, something even he can't compete against. But Lilith wants Lucifer to make good on her deal. She told him where Sabrina was and she wants her powers back. And when he declines, she stabs him in the back with the one thing that can kill him, the Spear of Longinus. Longinus, whatever. It's the spear that pierced the side of Jesus as he hung on the cross. Believe it or not, this spear was teased as Lucifer's downfall way back in part 2.
Well planned, but fruitless.
Only the Spear of Longinus could kill me.
Lilith then proceeds to drink Lucifer's celestial blood to regain her powers, and I would assume this also makes her Queen of Hell. She banishes Lucifer to wander the mortal realm without his powers, just like he did to her, and this is yet another example of a story thread that just kind of ends. If there's a season 5, expect Lucifer to make a return and want revenge on Lilith. Scans show that Sabrina's body is completely empty. When her soul was brought into its new body, part of the void latched onto it, hence why random people and objects disappear around her. Sabrina sees no choice but to cast herself out to the Mountains of Madness so that she can no longer hurt anyone else. Meanwhile, the others concoct a plan to save Sabrina and end the void for good. But part of this plan involves retrieving Pandora's box, and they have no idea where it is. This is where Nick's locket comes into play. Because the two lockets are bound together, he can find out where her body is, snatch the box, and return home. And Nick can go into the emptiness of space and live because he was forged in the fires of hell. But he has to use an eldritch tentacle thing in order for him to breathe. At the Mountains of Madness, Sabrina is visited by Blackwood, who claims he can teach her how to control the void and perhaps one day even get rid of it. And Sabrina here doesn't really have a choice. After all, there's no one who knows more about the void and the eldritch terrors than Faustus Blackwood. 2 weeks later, and Ambrose, Prudence, Roz, and Agatha track down Sabrina using her familiar Salem. Sabrina herself looks completely drained of power, having to hold back the void. Ambrose accuses Faustus of trying to unite the rest of the void with the peace in Sabrina so he can wield the power all for himself. They ask for a trade, all the Eldritch Terrors and Pandora's box, in exchange for Sabrina. This would be way more powerful for Faustus.
I settle for Sabrina's paltry piece of the void, but it is almost in its entirety here.
Faustus agrees, but it's all a trap. The box is a fake rigged with gunpowder, blinding him in the process. The next step is where things get complicated. By cutting Sabrina on this altar and allowing her void-infused blood to drain around it, they can open a containment field for a brief moment of time. Nick, Ambrose, and Harvey take the Eldritch Terrors through the field to leave them there, while simultaneously searching for their family members who disappeared. Hilda and Zelda also lock eyes with a mysterious visitor. You might remember her as the Dread Banshee from season 3, and she foreshadows a member of the Spellman's death.
It's an omen, Sabrina. I'm sorry, but a member of the Spellman family is going to die soon.
Nick and the gang successfully save everyone from the void, and I'm like, I hope those pancakes made it out too, and it's safely sealed away within Pandora's box. But Sabrina doesn't make it. We see her blood has turned from white to red, and Wardwell's voiceover transitions us to the funeral of both Sabrinas. Zelda struggles with why their goddess Hecate didn't help Sabrina. Maybe that's because Sabrina isn't dead. And even if she is, there's always been ways to bring back someone from it, like the Cane Pit or another thread left open, Baron Samedi. Samdi. In part 4, we learned that Mambo Marie was in fact the head of the Loa spirits, Baron Samdi, who gives Zelda an object she can use to summon him in case she ever needs something. Who better to raise someone from the dead than the spirit who helps carry those to the underworld? But what we're really wanting to know is what happened to Sabrina. We see her in the same void-like room, but this time it has some more cheerful and colorful paintings. The writing even says the sweet hereafter. And what about the void? Isn't it trapped in Pandora's box? So this can't be the void, right? It also can't be heaven or hell, or else she'd just show up there. The paintings give us a little hint. I take these to mean the left being hell, the middle the apple tree from the Garden of Eden, the mortal world, and the right being heaven. She is somehow in between these three places. This is different than the void, which had pictures of M.C. Escher paintings alluding to how there was no escape, things just keep repeating over and over in a vast nothingness. So we can assume this isn't the void, nor a place we've seen in the Sabrina universe before. Then there's the introduction of Nick, who alludes that he killed himself to be with her, which is a bit problematic since it romanticizes suicide. How did he get here? Wouldn't he be sent to hell? How did he know where she was? That's the problem with this ending. It's so open-ended and doesn't give us closure on almost any of the characters. The emotion falls flat because of it. Thematically, the ending falls in line with how Sabrina's character arc is set up. At the beginning of part 4, Sabrina finds herself alone.
Everyone's moved on without me.
No one loves you. No one could love you.
I still feel alone.
She even tells Lucas how she doesn't know where she fits in the universe.
I've just been having this free-floating anxiety. Like, I don't know who I really am anymore.
And that's where we leave her at the end, alone and unsure of where she is. The addition of Nick felt forced and tacked on. I felt like there was more story to be told. In chapter 31, Sabrina says,
I need to figure out who I am on my own.
But I didn't get the feeling that she did that. Her character arc to me was left unfulfilled. And I think part of the problem here is that the writers don't exactly know where the series is going and had, out of necessity, to leave it as wide open as possible in case it gets renewed. In a July 2020 tweet from executive producer Roberto Aguirre Sacasa, he said part 5 would take place via comic and would be entitled Witch War and include the witches of Riverdale. But in a more recent Instagram post on December 31st, 2020, he used the words, quote, the last For Now episode, hinting that something is in the works. For months, it's been hinted that the series will be picked up on HBO Max, which owns the rights to the Sabrina property under Warner Brothers. And if you click on the distributors section of IMDb, guess who is listed as one of the distributors? HBO Max. I really hope this show comes back. It's been a fantastic ride, and I think these characters deserve a better ending than what we got. But that's just my opinion. What do you think of Sabrina's maybe final last season? I want to hear your comments and theories below. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share, and check out my Chilling Adventures of Sabrina playlist below. For more bad takes, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.